Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Now today's question is, Katie, have you talked about clients dodging questions before or having trouble answering questions? For example, they give an explanation to a yes or no question that doesn't really provide an answer to the question. My therapist pointed something similar out to me this week. I really like this question because dodging questions is so common in therapy. If I got paid $1 every time someone did this, I'd have been able to retire already. But in all honesty, there is really a lot more to this than you would think. So let's just really get into it. Now, first, dodging questions may be something that we have done our whole lives. I want you to think about this because we might have done it in order to stay safe and okay. This could have been by lying in order to not be abused or mistreated by a parent, or even by sidestepping questions that could make a parent or friend mad. We can distract them with something else. Like, oh, I know this. Like I was just recently listening to a podcast. I love it. It's called Imagined Life. It's by Wondery. And it was a story about a person, and the person ended up being Drew Barrymore. Sorry, spoilers. But she was telling the story about how when she was a kid, her mom would quiz her before, if you don't know, Drew Barrymore started acting at a very, very young age. And so her mom would quiz her for her lines and pop culture things she should know. And if she didn't know the answer, she would distract her mom by saying, oh, did I tell you I got like an A on my algebra test? Or I learned all my multiplication tables. And so she would distract her with other things so that she wouldn't get in trouble and her mom wouldn't get mad and she could still go on that audition and do that thing. And so there's a lot of times where we do this as kind of like a coping skill so that we don't have to fight with our parents or get in trouble with someone else. And so know that it's kind of a very normal and regularly used defense mechanism. And also, it's just very normal to dodge questions that are difficult or uncomfortable. Like I said, it's like a defense mechanism. And I say all of this so that you know it's not bad that you do this. It's actually perfectly normal and part of what I would call self-preservation. And if you're curious about defense mechanisms, I have a whole video about it, and if you want to check that out, I will link it in the description. Now, I have patients change the subject, try to ask about me and my life, give me information, or share a story that has nothing to do with what we're working on. Sometimes it honestly doesn't even have anything to do with them. And overall, they'll just try to avoid talking about real issues in therapy. And that's really normal. That makes sense, right? Therapy is really hard. Sometimes a therapist comes in and starts asking us about stuff we've never told anyone before. Ooh, I don't know. I'm not comfortable. We'll do anything to get out of it. And so without even realizing it, we might just be engaging in this defense mechanism just so that we don't have to talk about uncomfortable things, cry, feel overwhelmed, maybe dissociate or have a panic attack. It's really, really common and normal. And honestly, overcoming these defenses is a lot of the work that I do every day with my patients. It could be, I could do this by trying to ask a question in a different way, or starting with something more recent that isn't as emotionally charged. It could even be taking a step back and building up resources first. If you don't know what resources are, when we do trauma work specifically, you can use resources in your whole life and all types of therapy, but specific to trauma, we talk about how we have to build up resources to help us keep ourselves grounded and present while we work through the shitty stuff. And so we have to build up those resources like friends, family, journaling, impulse logs, coloring, going for a walk. It's all these tools and coping skills that we can access when we need to, okay? And honestly, it's really not very common, now that I've said all of that, just know that it's not very common that I have a patient come into my office and be so open and honest and have no issue talking about anything I ask. That pretty much never happens, okay? So just know that. But remember also that defense mechanisms and self-preservation techniques, even though they happen a lot in therapy, don't really have a place in therapy. And just hear me out, because yes, I know they do give us information about our triggers, and then we can share, that information with our therapist. But the goal of therapy is actually to push through those as much as we can and open up. Which, trust me, I know, I'm in therapy too. I know it's really, really hard. But it's really the core of therapy because our therapist can't really help us or offer any helpful tools if they don't really know what's going on or what really happened to us, right? How could they even know where to start? We don't. And so with all of that in mind, how do we push past these and open up more easily? Because that's really the question, right? And here are some of my tips. First, and you knew this one was coming, and I'm sorry, but I'm not really sorry. Try to write out what you're feeling, thinking, or want to talk about in therapy. This not only helps us get used to thinking about it and putting words to it, but it also gives us something we could read in therapy, give to our therapist, or possibly even email to them. If they allow that, check with them first. But it can be a great way to share something that maybe we couldn't do otherwise, because it could just be too difficult, right? And on that note, I do have a journal prompt club. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but I opened it up through YouTube memberships. And you can find the link to join in the description below. I post journal prompts on Tuesdays and on Fridays, so if you struggle to even know what to write about, it's a great way to maybe get the journaling going. Okay, now next, try talking about the difficulty opening up, not the actual thing itself. This is something I do a lot of times with my patients. Because let's say it's really hard to talk about a certain time in our life, or maybe a difficult relationship that we had. Instead of focusing on that and trying to push through and just keep talking, how about instead we shift our focus to what we're feeling? Is it maybe I feel a little anxious? Or maybe I feel like crying and I just don't like to cry in front of people. How about I talk about that? I just don't like to cry. I've never really gotten comfortable with it. So talking to our therapist about the struggle we're having can help them maybe know or realize that we dissociate or have crippling anxiety or panic attacks. And then they can shift their work towards building up resources for us. And it's kind of just a sneaky way to get in there, because it can be really hard to keep pushing through when that thing that we're trying to talk about, maybe we don't have words to put to it. I don't even really know how I feel. And whoop, maybe we dissociate, or maybe we have a panic attack, or maybe we just start crying and we just want to leave the session. We're shut down. It's too much. So just explaining that you have a tough time and maybe getting into why you think that is, or just talking about that in general, can often allow your therapist to offer different tools and techniques that might be helpful and in the future help you push past that so you can talk about the thing that's been so difficult. Next, self-talk. And I know I talk about this a lot when it comes to our confidence and recovery and all sorts of stuff like that. But we may have to use this to help us trust our therapist. I hear from a lot of you that part is really, really hard, and I get it. And so this could be a mantra that we say, like, they got in this to help people. Therapists are there to help people. Or, if I don't trust them, therapy is not going to be able to help me. Whatever we need to do to help us feel comfortable and safe, when we're sharing things with our therapist, let's do it. Because I know it's odd to tell a stranger things that maybe you haven't told anyone else. But if we don't do that, therapy won't be able to help us as much. So notice. Take time to notice what you tell yourself about therapy, what you say to yourself about sharing with your therapist, and even what you say to yourself about the process. Be patient and kind and compassionate towards yourself as you work on it. Therapy is hard, and we're not going to make it any easier if we just shit talk ourselves all the time about us having such a tough time and it shouldn't be this hard. It's only going to make it worse. So just notice that conversation and make sure it's one of kindness, compassion, and patience for your process, because therapy's hard and we have to do the best that we can. Okay, and my final tip, set your own goals. Now, I know this tip may seem just a little odd, but it can really, really help to figure out what we want to get out of therapy. Since not all therapists work with treatment plans, I personally think that they all should, but it's not required, so move on, Katie. But you may, if they don't do that, you may have to set some goals for yourself and your own therapy process. Do we want to work on our anxiety? Maybe our relationship with that one friend? Maybe we're reminded of a trauma we never processed and we want to finally work through it. Whatever it is, take some time to set these goals and then work backwards from them. What would have to happen to get you to that goal? We could even bring these goals with us to therapy and have our therapist help us figure out the smaller steps we need to take. Sometimes knowing what we're working towards can help keep us motivated. Instead of feeling like we're just going to therapy and nothing's getting better, trust me, we've all been there, but it is so worth it. So maybe this can help, because sometimes I don't know why, but sometimes it's like a sneaky trick of mine that when we think more like logistically and organizationally, which goals does, it gets us out of our emotion mind and sometimes allows us to talk about things that we maybe weren't able to, or at least let our therapist let them know where we're hoping we'll go so that they can help us work to that. I hope that makes sense. Oh, and of course, and I just have to say this, make sure you at least like your therapist. Feel like they get you and are on your side. And I know that all should go without saying, but I just wanted to make sure that we are seeing someone we connect with before we worry about opening up. We want to make sure that, they're worth us putting in all this work and they're actually meeting us where we're at and challenging us. So I have videos about how to know if you're seeing a good or bad therapist. You can check those out if you have concerns or questions, but just make sure you like them. Make sure they're on your side, because we know above all the research that your therapist can be super, super educated and have all these credentials and have helped all these people. But if we don't have a connection with them, if the therapeutic relationship is lacking, we won't be able to get any work done. So just keep that in mind. And as always, let me know any of the other tips or tricks that have worked for you. Share those in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.